Rain, heavy blows, dirty eyes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm Andy McNamara, your host, and today I am joined by an ex-Game Informer team member, Justin Leeper, who has gone on to do crazy things. And in particular, what we're going to talk about some today is that you've worked on Death Stranding, among a lot of other things. But welcome, Justin. How you doing?
Thanks, Andy. It's great to see you. Yeah, I guess I'm quite a blast from the past here. I often, lament that I was on staff before kind of the social media boom. So maybe not a lot of people remember me. Some that do, I give them, bonus points in my heart. But yeah, man, I've still followed the magazine in all these many years and talked to you and Reiner and other guys every once in a while. So it's cool to be sort of collaborating on something right now.
Well, we're also always for me personally, I'm always super proud when anyone that we were lucky enough to work with goes on to do great things. And certainly too, not only social media, but doing video and all those kind of things that as that you were actually was an expertise for you, and you went on to do in other areas, which is kind of cool. So
yeah, I mean, before I joined staff, and I will always, and I've talked to you about this recently, but I will always credit you for taking a chance on a kid with not a lot of experience. And, kind of Game Informer was really a jumping off point for me in games and writing and in so many different things that, if I hadn't had that opportunity, who knows what factory I'd be working at.
Oh, you're a smart guy. I think you would have tore it up. But I think that's the funny thing. I do want to go on this just so everybody knows. Where were you when we hired you to come on to Game Informer? What were you doing? I think is an interesting story.
Yeah, the crazy thing was when I originally applied, I think I was living in Key West, Florida. And I was this poor, lonely kid living in my stepdad's old trailer in Key West, Florida, working at a hotel front desk. And then, but over time, while, you guys were going through your process, I ended up living in Richmond, Virginia, and I was doing slave labor for Gwar, both, figuratively and literally.
Yes.
And Gwar was my favorite band. And by the time, I was with Gwar and I was making no money, but I was so happy. But you came with the offer, and I thought, man, do I leave this? What do I do? And those guys are like, dude, we're not doing anything. We'll be around. Go and get that gig. So yeah, I ended up coming up from Richmond, Virginia, in my crummy car with all my meager possessions, and drove up to Minnesota with no place to live at first. And I crashed in Paul Anderson's guest room for a couple days, where I was too shy to ask him where for a towel, so I didn't shower those first couple days.
It's so funny, and it's just so crazy. Eventually, we had the Gwar guys come and visit us here at the office once, and they were so nice, bunch of really great people, and obviously, very sad what's gone on since then. But
yeah, with Dave, that was crazy because his last shows were here in Japan, and I came out to Japan when I was living in LA to help them out, to kind of be a liaison, and then so I was at Dave's last show, hung out with him, and then they hired me on to tour with them, the first tour without Dave.
Wow, that's crazy.
And Dave Isodoris Urungus, the lead singer of Gwar, who was just an amazing man, amazing character. And I even used him when I was making video games for voiceover.
Yeah, so tell us some about your career. You worked on WWE SmackDown versus Raw, right, for a number of years?
Mm-hmm.
And
I was the Road to WrestleMania designer, writer, director for WWE SmackDown versus Raw, 2009, 2010, 2011. So those are 10 years now. And that was a really great experience. Because while I was at Game Informer, I was also learning how to be a pro wrestler.
Of course you were.
Training there. And so I could kind of combine my game knowledge and my wrestling knowledge and my writing love to make stories for the WWE games, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I know you were friends with some other wrestlers that went on to do some other things, but you were a big part of the local scene here and did a lot of matches, which was crazy. You definitely kind of cut your skills as far as acting goes, right? With would you say that? Did you say wrestling helped you kind of where you are now?
Performance, when you're in front of 300 people in a unitard trying to act tough, that really, that removes your fear of performing. I don't get butterflies when I go record a DVD about being an English teacher or something, so that really helped get my performance chops up there. And fight choreography and acting are very similar in that when you learn the basics, then you can kind of play with it and make it your own. And some of the guys that I met in Minnesota went on to do some big things, and I brought some of them back for the motion capture that I was directing for the WWE games, and so it kind of came full circle that way.
That's awesome. So tell me a little about you. So you've been doing performance and acting throughout Tokyo for a while now. How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so I originally came to Japan in March of 2016, and that's when I had auditioned for Universal Studios Japan. So they hire their foreign cast out. They do like this world tour that they go to LA, they go to Australia, they go to London, and they audition people to do Terminator, to do all the Harry Potter stuff that they have here. And I originally went into audition for Terminator. I thought, well, I kind of got the jawline. I kind of look like it a little bit. And I went in there, and the audition didn't go great. But afterwards, I said, arigato gozaimashita. And they said, oh, you speak Japanese? I said, yeah, a little bit. They said, okay, read this Harry Potter script. And I didn't bother with it before because it was looking for like old wizard guys, and I'm not an old wizard guy. But I read that stuff, and they ended up hiring me on. So for my first year here, I was living rent-free in a giant apartment complex full of other gaijin and working at Universal Studios. And I was a wand keeper at Ollivanders.
That's awesome.
So I would have this 5-minute one-man show where I would, take 30 guests, and I would pick you and try this wand, and half it was in Japanese. And I would do, I did maybe 4,200 shows in that year. And after the contract was up, they were like, yep, okay, you're going home. And I said, maybe I'm not going to go home because I have this entertainer visa and I want to go to Tokyo and be an actor. So I kind of did the steps it took to come out here, sign with some agencies, and it was kind of slow going at first. But, it built up, and that's been my full-time job for the last 2.5 years.
So how do you get connected with Kojima Productions and Death Stranding?
So the audition came out. The main company that I work with is called Remix, and one of their agents was casting, kind of helping with the casting. So he sent me a thing like, oh, there's, and they use like acronyms. It was like a K video game or something. It was pretty vague, but I kind of figured out who it was, and I originally auditioned for Higgs. So that's a character that Troy Baker ended up playing and voicing. And I went in, and everybody auditioning was taller and younger than me. So I was like, okay, that's the type they're looking for. Oh, well. And we went to Kojima Productions' new studio, and I'm sure you've seen pictures of it and whatnot with the big Ludin statue and this crazy lit, 2001 Space Odyssey room. And so I'm sitting there waiting, and first guy auditions, he comes back, and people are like, oh, did you see Kojima? And he was like, I don't know if it was him or not. And I was like, okay, that guy's not getting it. He doesn't know anything. So I go next, and he's, Kojima-san sitting right there in the middle, and there were 3 or 4 other people. And, first when I was doing my Jiko Shokai, my introduction in Japanese, I was mentioning to Kojima-san what a fan I am. Not just Metal Gear, but, Zone of the Enders, which was the first game I reviewed for GameInformer magazine. Snatcher, which I loved. And I even told him the story about how when Kato and Reiner were reviewing Metal Gear Solid 2, they never spoiled the Raiden thing for us.
Which is crazy when you look back now.
Yeah. So I did that stuff. I did the audition. Audition went well. I threw, like I always do, I throw in some pro wrestler stuntman bumps. Like I'll just do a flip and land on my back in the middle of, just randomly to kind of show people that I can do that. And the audition was over. On my way back, Ima Izumi-san, who's been Kojima's longtime producer, he's like, you did a good job.
Oh, excellent.
So that made me feel really good. And on the train ride home, I get a phone call from my manager, and I can't answer it because I'm on the train. But when I get home, I talk to him, and he says, yeah, you got the part.
That's awesome.
So that was amazing. One of my dream jobs that I got so super easily, seemingly. But I actually went on to do almost all of Dead Man's performance too, and that's the Guillermo del Toro character.
So tell me some about so what's the experience like? So is it like a month-long schedule? Do you just go pack it all in one day? Like how do you do this many characters? Because you also did some facial capture too for BB as well, right?
Yeah. So I think when I was making the WWE games, we were on a really tight developmental cycle. We had 11 months to make that game. So I would write all those scripts. They would get approved by WWE. I'd write the shooting scripts, cast them. We'd have about 3 weeks where we just bang out all the motion capture, bang out all the cutscenes. Kojima, on the other hand, has, it took him 4 years to make Death Stranding. So he's kind of writing on the fly a little bit. So we would do a rehearsal, and we would do maybe 2 days of motion capture, of performance capture, and we would do that almost every month for like a year.
Wow.
So
So
my first scene I shot was in September of 2017, and my last one was in March of 2018. So I guess it was like a 7 month thing.
so tell me about that process. Is the audio already done? Are they playing the audio and you're like kind of performance to match what the scene is, or are you just getting directions from Kojima? This is what I want you to do.
Yeah, totally. So Kojima's there, and his director of photography is there setting up the angles, and but at that time, so when I was doing the Higgs stuff, Troy Baker had not been cast yet.
Oh wow.
So I didn't, I think they didn't know what the voice would sound like because Troy plays it more over the top than I kind of expected. And so like the scene where the I am Higgs, the particle of God that permeates all existence, that was me. The licking Fragile's face, that was me. I don't know how, I haven't played, I'm only 30 hours in the game, so
Yeah.
I don't know how many scenes I didn't do with Higgs, but I
Yeah.
did a lot of Higgs scenes. So we would set them up. We would be looking at the script. But when you're on set, especially we were doing performance capture, which captures facials also. So you have a camera right here, maybe 18 inches away, and there's a big light on it, and it's like it's in your face the whole time, and you have to get every word perfectly. So I'm doing these 7-page monologues, especially as Dead Man, where I had when I mess up a word, I see somebody on the side like writing it down, at the corner of my eye, but I have to keep going, and they want it to be one take, so you have to be perfect, and there's a little bit of pressure with that. So I'll tell you a real quick story. The first scene I was cast as Dead Man. So the other guy who was going to be Dead Man was a big dude, kind of fit the part a little bit more body wise, but he had problems with the lines. So as you know, playing Kojima games, there are lots and lots of lines of dialogue, and Dead Man had the most lines of dialogue. So they were like, Justin, this other guy's not working out. Can we toss a Dead Man scene on top of your Higgs stuff tomorrow? I was like, yeah, can I get the script? Sure. I get the script. It's 17 pages, and it's almost all me talking. And I have about 17 hours before my call time. So like I just have to sit home and just pound that stuff in my head with a ball peen hammer and make sure it gets in there. So I get on set, and then of course there's blocking. So I have the words down, but they're like, all right, around here you have to go over here and pretend that there's this BB pod, and you have to go over here and show Sam, something on the table. I'm like, wow, I gotta absorb all that stuff too. But I did okay. I think they needed to split it into 2 takes, which they don't do a lot, but almost all other motion capture people do. But then they were like, okay, from now on, you're going to be Dead Man. So like the shower scene, which is pretty infamous. And I don't want to say too much, but I shot this shower scene, and that was really interesting because I had kind of not a fat suit, but like a cushion around me to give me that girth.
Yeah, the correct
of Dead Man.
spatial kind of
And,
understanding.
Yeah, definitely to because I would try to do like the fat guy walk and everything, but it needed the actual dimensions for sure.
Yeah. So, are you doing any of these scenes with other people? Are you doing this solo? Like, how does that work out?
Yeah, everybody who's in the scene is there. So there was a Tokyo motion capture unit, and that was me and about 6 other people. The only character that I don't think had somebody else doing a couple scenes was Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, okay.
So I think he did everything himself. But so we had Eric Brown's a very talented actor who did a lot of older Metal Gear stuff. He was our Sam Bridges in Tokyo, and we had somebody doing Fragile, somebody doing Hartman, somebody doing Die Hardman. So we had all those people, and yeah, everybody was we all had these big facial rigs on and acting with one another. We had a little pod, a little BB pod that we would carry around that we weren't really sure what it would look like. It was kind of like a shoebox that they filed down.
That's interesting. So tell me some about like what's it like? What is Kojima as the auteur, like as a director? What was that like to work with him? What was kind of example of directions he gave you? What did you think of the experience?
Yeah, I came in and I was a huge Kojima fan, and I had also done my share of motion capture directing. So I directed all the cutscenes for the WWE video game. So I knew I knew what went into that a little bit, and I had written those stories. So I was like a, iota, like a 1% of a Kojima as far as, what I knew how to do. But getting on set with him, working with him, I mean, he was very hands-on. He gave lots of feedback, and he always had answers, which a good director must do. He had a great sense of humor. He was funny. I'm not fluent in Japanese, but we communicated well. And one thing that was really great was he would use our input. So if like Dead Man's final scene, I had an idea for it, and I went to Kojima-san and I said, "Hey, how about we do this?" And he was like, "All right, let's try it," and it looked good. And Dead Man's final scene is something that I sort of came up with.
That's awesome.
And that's such an honor that somebody with his skill level would go like, "All right, yeah, I like your idea."
I mean, we have video of you dressed up as Solid Snake. I mean, you're obviously a huge fan.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that was one of my first, opportunities of acting. And that's still on my YouTube page. And, you with that perfect chuck of the magazine where it went right underneath. Yeah, that was great.
So, I mean, you are definitely a well-known fan. So you were more than prepared for this role in particular. Yeah. You worked with other directors. I mean, did you say was it easy to tell that what his vision was? Did you just have to make a leap of faith and go I have no idea what's going on in this scene, but I'll follow direction and get through? How does that work out? Especially because there is so much story and there's a lot to kind of
right. Yeah, it's rough because every character, Hartman and Mama, they all have their huge twists or at least intricacies. And I didn't know all that stuff. So I'm working with these characters that I'm not that familiar with. Die Hard Man and I had a couple scenes. And you don't necessarily know where these scenes are fitting in the chronology of the game itself. So yeah, there's a lot of, me asking questions about motivation and direction and them being a little bit vague about it. So yeah, it was a little bit tough, and, I'm trying to figure stuff out. I knew some stuff. I didn't know all that much stuff.
Gotcha.
And there's so many questions in Death Stranding when you watch the trailers, or even when you've been playing it for a couple hours. And I just had to, like you said, leap of faith. And I played Dead Man a little bit like Otacon, because Otacon was, Snake's. He looked up to Snake, but he was also pretty smart, but maybe a little bit socially stunted. And that's kind of how I played Dead Man a little bit. And what Otacon was to the Metal Gear, Dead Man sort of was to the BBs.
Yeah.
So that I played it a little bit like that. Higgs, I just played Higgs like a heel, and that seemed to work. There is a Higgs scene. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a Higgs delivery scene, and that's all I'll say about it. But that gave me a chance to have a little fun with that character, because I did that scene too.
That's awesome. So tell me about, how do you, a grown man, play a baby, right? I mean, that's got to be an interesting challenge.
Yeah, that's probably the headline to that story is probably way cooler than the actual body of the article. But yes, I did the facial motions for BB. Now, what that means is, so before we shoot, they have us do body motions so they get our range of motion. And when we're doing facial capture, they have us look, that kind of thing, a range of motion for the face. And we would do that after we shot as well. We'd sit down and there'd be a monitor in front of us and we could kind of see ourselves, which looks terrible when you have a camera like that. But they said, okay, Justin, before you leave today, when you do your facial ROM, can we get you to do the range of emotions for BB? And I was like, well, gee, yes. I don't plan on having kids, so that's kind of the closest thing I'll get. So they have me do the kind of, the giggling, the crying, the fussing. They have me go through a big range for BB. And the way I describe it is that we as facial capture actors, we are the muscles underneath the skin.
Gotcha.
So I am the muscles underneath the skin of Dead Man. I do not look anything like Guillermo del Toro. You may not even knowing me and watching that character, you may not see a lot of me in there, but I am providing the muscles. And the same thing with BB. I've looked and done a lot of stills and whatever, and I show my wife hey, does that look like me? No, Oh, what about this one? No. Okay. But it's still just awesome to know that, that those animations were used by the artist to help animate BB, because that character is amazing too. And, I'll sit there and I'll rock BB around for no reason, even when BB's, stress is perfect, just to see those little bubbly shaped hearts come up.
That's so awesome. Well, I mean, that's such an amazing story. And just like, I think, when you first mentioned it to me, I was like, wait, what? You really threw me off. I was completely unprepared for this to happen, but I think that's quite an amazing moment and quite an amazing journey, Justin. So congratulations. That's really, really, really awesome work.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice that I've had these stories that people who don't know me don't believe. Like, oh yeah, I toured with Gwar. No, you didn't. Oh, I was a pro wrestler. No, you weren't. Oh, I made these WWE games. No, you didn't. Like, I did another game I did here. I did the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. I did the motion capture for, like, I got to play Groot and Thanos and Captain America and Hulk and Beast and Odin. Like, that was super cool too, just getting to play those characters. So I'd love to do more mocap. Unfortunately, there's not as much in Japan as I'd kind of hoped there would be.
Well, now that you'll be an international star of mocap, right? They'll be flying you all over the globe. Yeah.
Let's hope. Let's hope so.
Let's hope. Well, thanks, Justin. I appreciate you taking the time today. It's a great story. Amazing. So thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for watching the Game Informer show. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. The segment you just watched and hopefully enjoyed was taken from the Game Informer show, brought to you by the editors behind Game Informer magazine. The show releases every Thursday, so we would love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit us on GameInformer.com to join in the conversation and take part in our GI community. Thanks for watching.